Well, welcome back to the channel. It's been a long time. I apologize. It's been busy, but wanted to make a little video discussing how we can survive 2023, which we're only a couple weeks left to go, and what we can do going into 2024. But before we get too far, I wanted to show a little blurb, a little article, and some facts, kind of rewinding what's kind of led us to here. So basically, after October, which is normally the busiest month of the year on the road for the holiday season, turned out to be the worst for hauling cargo in the past by 5 years. So a total of 785 trucking companies with a combined fleet of 39,000 trucks went out of business in the third quarter, bringing the number of trucking companies idle to more than 127,000, or 6.5% of the industry. So pretty amazing statistics. But here's the interesting thing. That article that you see there, you might thought it reflected exactly what was happening in 2023, but that article is actually from 2008, which coincidentally was the year I started into the freight broker industry. So just because we're having a rough year doesn't mean you still can't have success. And I started when it was rock bottom in 2008, and you had to work harder, but you can still survive. So just want to kind of show that little bit of a thing there. So basically, let's just go through what kind of happened in 2023, and then I'll get into what we could potentially, I'm not saying I have all the answers, I'm just putting together some observations from what I've seen over the course of 2023 and potentially what we can do moving into 2024. So 2023 started out with freight volumes decreasing. So this lower freight volume led to increased supply of available trucks versus lower number of loads, which caused this, the supply demand, push the rates down. And meanwhile, the following carrier operating costs remain high. The diesel prices were high. Part shortages continued, but not as bad as 2021-22, but parts were still, they came down a bit. Shop rates to repair trucks remain all-time high. Used trucks, trailers at the start of 2023 were high, but they've started to drop almost 50% of the 21-22 rates as more used equipment came onto the marketplace. Several carriers went bankrupt, including YRC. Freight brokerages started going bankrupt. That happened. Inflation soared in 2023. That was another big factor. The next thing, what else happened? So what caused some of the rates to reduce in 2023? Well, first off, many of the warehouses were full at the start of 2023 because after many shippers experienced a lot of shortages, their suppliers, they put a lot of demands. If you're, for example, let's take, say, a Starbucks or some big, chain that has multiple stores. They put pressure on their suppliers to increase their volume from, say, a 3-month period up to a 6-month period. And the reason I can say this is that I had a client that I was working on some frozen storage for, and pretty much, and this was in Canada, pretty much the frozen storage market was tapped out. If you wanted to get into the frozen cold storage, if you didn't have at least 200 pallets or more that you want to store at a time, most frozen warehouse places wouldn't even look at it, wouldn't even consider it. So there was a lot of, basically the warehouses filled up. So due to this issue, instead of having to have, as they call it in the trucking industry, JIT, just-in-time freight, because the warehouses were more full, the shippers were in a position where they can shop the market more to try to reduce their freight costs, because they paid high prices in 21, 22 for ocean freight and truck freight. So many companies started to look at their supply chain and their transportation cost and realized they needed to reduce the rate. So because their warehouses inventory were good, they didn't have the pressure to do this. So therefore they could shop the market. So they required the increase of the volume, reduced, and I think I've already touched this. Also, a lot of companies shifted to rail and 3PL warehouses to basically help reduce their cost. And then brokers with long-term existing customers had to lower their rates to stay competitive. So the whole market in 2023 really became a lot more competitive. What else happened in 2023? As I mentioned, brokers had to cut margins, and I know that personally. I can see that in my own numbers, that and across the brokerage I'm with, we're doing the same volumes. Other than 2019 was a bad year, but we're doing the same volumes, but we're doing with reduced revenue and reduced profit because we're having to work harder. So basically, we're having to, basically reduce our profits so that we're competitive to the customer, trying to give as much to the carriers as they can. I know many will dispute that the brokers are taking it all, but I know from myself, I've had to shrink my margins on all ends in order to keep the business I've had. The other challenges that happened in 2023, a lot of the larger brokerages switched to digital platforms and held lower rates longer than previous years. Because in the past years, if a load was sitting on the board for too long, they would pay extra to get the load moved, just to keep the customer, keeping their customer happy, to keep the freight on time. The other thing that happened is, but this in 2023, they had more time, so they can hold their price lower. The other thing that really was a big impact for the smaller carriers who like to negotiate loads is a lot of brokers switched to email-only communication, which took away the opportunity to negotiate a load as easy. Smaller carriers and owner-operators, they also were trying to hold out for better rates, hoping the market would return to 2020 and 2022 rates. So therefore, we had this situation where there's available loads, available trucks. Brokers were trying to keep the price low because of the pressure of the customers, and carriers who have higher operating costs still in 2023 were holding out, trying to look for better rates. So this basically happened throughout most of the year. So there was rate pressures persisted, and then we started to see more and more carriers going broke. One of the biggest hits was YRC. Amazon reduced their usage of outside carriers to reduce their freight spend. They seen in 2023 seen a 4.97% contraction of freight brokers in the United States for the first time in 4 years. So basically, historically, we've seen many times where trucking companies go out of the business, but we're now seeing a lot of freight brokerages that also went out of the business, exiting the marketplace. So Convoy's not alone. Thousands of freight brokers have closed in 2023. There's a great article from truckinfo.net written by Carl Fretwell on October 24th, 2023, and I'll put a link in the video description. But the key topics he talked about was the freight market is considered a leading indicator in the general economy. It's the first contraction in freight brokerages in 4 years. More closures are likely on the way, and some states have been more severely impacted than others. So data from the Bureau of Transportation Statistics has found a sharp drop in the freight market often precedes an economic recession, which we've seen with increased inflation and economic downturns. So while most of the economy suffered during the pandemic times, the freight market experienced a boom. Many expected, and boon, I should clarify, is a timely benefit blessing, a boon to like homeowners. The rain was a boon for parched crops. So it's a benefit. So they use the word not boom, but boon. So many expected the industry to cool off in the following years, but it's the first time in the data provided by the FMCSA that more freight brokerages have gone out of business than open shop. So, and that's the chart on the right-hand side here that you can see 2022 to Q3 of 2023, we saw this contraction of almost 5% reduction in brokerages across the market. So the alarming trend of broker closures may not be the end. If the industry were to return to pre-COVID levels, we could see thousands more brokerages shutting down in the coming years. So to put this in perspective, if you look here, so in 2019, there was 20,000 brokerages. And then in September 2023, there's 28,129, and then we start to see the drop off from there. So some states have been severely impacted. Basically, if we look at it, we see Georgia. I won't read through the whole thing. It's kind of boring there. You can pause the video and read through it. So I won't try to. I could read it, but it's just you'll just be bored of that. So just to highlight that, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, and Texas were the big ones impacted with the amount of brokerages exiting the marketplace. So the end is near. So while freight broker closures have been felt across the nation, the impact has not been uniform. So Georgia, Florida in particular have been impacted while having fewer freight brokerages than California and Texas. Both states have lost more freight brokerages in absolute terms as a percentage. So while freight broker closures have been felt across the nation, the impact is not uniform. Georgia, Florida were impacted. So those are just kind of the highlights of what we're seeing. So I've only skimmed the surface to bring context of the current situation in the trucking and logistics industry in 2023 and then leading into 2024. So you can search the internet for exact stories. Some you may not like to say, but we have done this to ourselves. So this is what kind of my little thing to lead into. We've been focusing as a carrier to get better rates and as brokers to reduce the rate. So in 2024, I think part of the solution that we have to look for to get that consistency back is focus on win-win. So this leads me to what can we do for 2023 with the last couple of weeks and then leading into 2024. So first off, stop, take a breath, and look at your specific business and network. Chart out your customers, shippers, and consignees, the supply chain, basically their supply chain, to gain a deep understanding of their supply, of where they fit. So meaning, identify where your freight brokerage or carrier services fit into that chain. So are you hauling the raw commodity from the manufacturer? Are you hauling the finished goods to the end consumer? Or are you hauling parts where they're going to get assembled into another piece? So better understanding where the freight you're hauling fits into the overall supply chain for the industries that you service will better help you identify, because obviously certain industries, because of the value of the goods and the volumes that they're trying to move, they're going to have certain pressures, like obviously more specialized items like medical equipment. And if you're shipping it by truckloads to hospitals, they may pay more freight because one, it's high valued and they don't want to damage. So they're probably willing to pay more. If you have a truckload of small widgets going to a car manufacturer or to an appliance supply, manufacturing facility or something, or some other industrial facility, they may be putting pressure to ship it at a lower cost because they need to bring their costs down. So identify where you fit in that supply chain. The next, can you expand to further assist to streamline your customer supply chain? That's where you have to have these conversations. So you understand where you fit, where does your customer fit, and how you can better help them. How you can also do this as a carrier. Build an email list if you've not already done so using a tool, and as a brokerage as well. If you're a broker, have an email tool where you can build a network of your carriers, preferred carriers, and carriers. You can make an email list of your preferred brokerages. So you could use MailChimp, MailLite, or Constant Contact. So these each one of them has pros and cons, but they all work the same. But what they do, first and foremost, instead of just, if you have a list of 10 people or 10 brokerages you want to email your truck availability to, or if you're a broker and you want to email available loads, if you just use your regular email, it doesn't protect you for being anti-spam. And some email services may detect you as trying to spam it. But if you use a MailChimp, MailLite, Constant Contact, you'll be compliant with anti-spam laws in both Canada and United States. Market your services, right? What services you offer as a brokerage or as a carrier. Advertise available loads or trucks. Thank your customers and holiday messages. If you add additional services that you've currently done, send out an email campaign. Let them know that, hey, you're now adding a new lane that you're servicing, or you now have access to warehouse storages, etc. What you can do to help your customer with their supply chain. So what else can you do for the rest of this 2023 and going into 2024? Review your customers and rank them by volume and by highest revenue. Very important to do both. So if you're a carrier and you're using brokerages, do the same if you're a broker and you have direct shippers. But again, I'll just repeat. Review your customers and rank them by volume and highest revenue. It's important to do both, because you might be surprised that your highest volume customers could represent 75-80% of your business, but not be your highest revenue per load. So ideally, your book of business is a mix. So sometimes your bread and butter loads are paying you a little bit less, but they're consistently paying you. So that's the money that you can rely on. And yes, you'll hit some home runs and get some better paying loads. But if you look at that, you need to look at both volume and revenue, because sometimes you might realize, oh, actually, I moved a bunch of loads for these 2 or 3 brokerages, or you booked with a certain customer and you realize that they're actually taking up a lot of your volume because they're giving you multiple loads, but they are lower profit. But sometimes you need that mix. So the other thing is, as you can, set up physical or virtual meetings with your customers, brokers, or shippers to discuss the following things. 1, first off, thank them for their business. 2, review the past business, how much business you're doing with them. Use open-ended questions to gain insight on future plans and projections. and from your customer has about their business, right? Ask questions, sit back and listen, and see what your customer is saying about their industry, where they're going. Maybe they're planning to open a new branch, or maybe they're downsizing. Who knows? Or maybe they just want a new contract and they're going to be ramping up their production. And so that you're in kind of your goal is that you're trying to get in line with your customers' goals and plans. Ask how you can improve your services, right? We don't know unless you ask. See where the conversation goes. Listen more than you speak, and follow up with new questions based on the previous responses. So you go in there with certain questions, and then you have to have a plan that basically if you ask a customer a question and they respond one way, where does that next question go? And if they answer another way, you're going to have a different question. Follow up the meeting with a quick thank you and summarize. So if you had a Zoom meeting, or you stopped by your customer and said hello, and you had a bit of a 5-10 minute conversation about how things are going, and they give you some feedback like, hey, you know what, overall it's pretty good, but you've had a few trucks late. Address, okay, that's my number one priority, is to improve the on-time factor for pickups. And then when you get back to your home office or your truck, take a minute, send a thank you email, and summarize what was discussed and any future action plans that were necessary. Put it in your calendar, and then follow up in a week or whatever the time frame you guys discussed to show that you listened and that you're executing those plans. What else can we do? So what is your brokerage or carrier social media presence? So take a look. Depending whether you're one truck, multiple truck, you're a small brokerage, you're an agent for a broker. Can you have, depending on who you work for, sometimes they may or may not allow it, but you can utilize YouTube to create a company channel, not specific, personal to yourself, but you can have a company version and then create some promotional videos on there. LinkedIn profile, both business and personal. It's really important on LinkedIn that if you're working for a company, that company has a LinkedIn business profile. Then it's also important that you create your profile, I have it current, and then so that when you see your current company you're working for, their logo, when you put say, I'm currently a driver at this company, or I'm a broker agent at this company. When you look at the LinkedIn profile, that when you click that company, that link or that logo opens up to their business website. And what that does, it builds trust, because they see the consistency that what you're doing, and then they can open up the company, and then they can open up from the LinkedIn profile to the company's website. And having that consistency builds trust. The other thing on LinkedIn, you can do once a week post, just a little paragraph, a little couple sentences, a little tip, trick to help your industry or make awareness of something you're doing. Like you're currently working on a project in a certain lane, or if there's a little tip about paperwork or customs or something that you can do, just some small little tidbit that's going to be there. And then once a month, make a little bit longer post, and then quarterly, a blog post a little bit longer. And the idea is with LinkedIn, most people tend to just scroll, but if they see you on there consistently posting, all of a sudden they remember that when one day something comes up, they're like, I've seen this person before. I've seen that company logo before. And because they've seen it and they look and they see the website, they see the LinkedIn profile, and then they see if they want to reach out to you, it just builds that consistency and that trust, your presence. And then if they search up your company name, you're found. That's the other thing. Even if you're one carrier or a small broker, search up your company name. How present are you? How easy is someone to find you? And if not, you got to build a small website. Hire a local web company that's going to help you have some presence. So if they're looking for a dry van trailer in your lanes, your company name should come up. If you're a broker agent and you service certain industries, and someone says, looking to flatbed freight in a certain area, and you do flatbed freight for a certain area for a certain industry, that your brokerage comes up for that. So you can either build one, refresh your current website, and then the other thing that's really helpful is if someone finds your website, maybe take the time, think about all the questions you normally get about your business, and build a question called the frequently asked questions, and that will help streamline, because if customers have questions, and also you can link in the post from your LinkedIn profile, etc. As I kind of mentioned already, basically your Google presence. How are you able to be found on the internet? Someone types up your company name. If no one finds you, then you need to find someone who can help you do that to make yourself present. And then also make a plan in 2024. Can you attend a trade show in the industries that you service to create a presence? Whether if you're a big enough brokerage or carrier, maybe you want to actually at that industry set up a trade booth, find out how much that costs, make the plans, get up a trade booth built up and advertise yourself. Or do you just register as an attendee, go to the trade show, going around, talking to people, learning, better understanding, have some business cards. You hope that you build some network and see if attending an industry trade show can be of assistance to build your business. Then also, what else can you do? Focus on what's happening in the lanes that you run versus drowning in negativity. There's all kinds of negativity out there in the marketplace, but focus on what you can control. And that is, if you are a broker working in certain lanes or you're a carrier hauling freight in certain lanes, focus on what you see going on and how you can fit into those lanes. Because if you like to run a certain area or service an area as a brokerage, be aware of that. So take a look at that 10,000 foot market situation so you prepare yourself for your area. If you see that your industry that you service on, say, the other side of the country is having some struggles, maybe that's going to happen there. But the idea is just focus on what areas that you're currently working in and become a master of that. Know the players, know what's the trends, and be aware of that. Like, for example, if you run seasonal freight and your season is May, you do all the things planning in 2024 to prepare yourself so that either you've got your group of carriers if you're a broker, or if you're a carrier, that your trucks are all as best you can maintained so that when the season comes that you can make the most of those time periods when the freight's available. Find ways to reduce your costs if you can. Run a profit loss statement so you can better analyze your business. Stay focused on the receivables during this time period because we're seeing a lot of brokerages going out of business. You don't want to get caught with too much money owing on anywhere. And then set up goals. What are your goals for 2020? Make goals. Sorry for the typo right here. I got May goals for 2024. Make goals for 2024. Goals are a guide. They're a pathway to your success. A written plan with small quarterly steps will help shape you in 2024. And then once you create that plan for 2024, you do that in 2023, review each quarter and adjust accordingly. There's no silver bullet solution here. My key takeaway is consistency over time equals steps towards your business and your personal goals. So that's the whole logistics industry is consistency over time will help you achieve your goals, both personally, financially, and building a network of people around you. So hopefully this helps you a little bit to give you some ideas to think about. But the key is take a moment in 2023, review what you've done, look at what was your best months in revenue. If you're a broker or a carrier, what were your best months that you made? Either you did the most number of loads or you made the most revenue, combination of both. Maybe there's, 2 months you ran a lot of loads. They weren't your highest profit, but you moved a lot of freight and the dollars at the end of the month were pretty good. And then what were the months that you had the most high profit loads? What can you do to reach out to those same people to try to find and see if they're going to have the same freight again this year, and set yourself to be in those positions to replicate the successes of 2023 into 2024, and then focus on the areas that you service and finding new opportunities that are going to help you achieve your goals to be successful in 2024. So I'm not sure when my next video will be, but I just want to say thank you for watching this video. If you found some value, share. Give me your perspectives, share ideas that you're doing, and that others can see those comments and maybe learn from that. So the whole goal is stay positive. There's a lot of there's some negativities with the lower rates and pressures and costs of operations, but there's also great successes out there. And let's focus on the positive and share that amongst us and grow, surround yourself with successful people and positive people, because that's what's most important. Positivity will help you stay focused and moving forward versus just sitting back and being negative. So good luck with that and finishing up 2023 strong, and wishing you a great 2024.